In the heart of Leyte, where the rainforest breathes mist over tangled vines and river fog, legend tells of a woman who taught by day and fought by night. Her name was Nieves Fernández, the only recorded female guerrilla leader on the island during the Second World War, and one of the deadliest resistance fighters the Pacific had ever seen. Before the war, she was known simply as Ma'am Nieves, a respected schoolteacher in Tacloban. Her students remembered her soft voice and the way she would draw lessons in the dirt with a stick. She believed in patience, discipline, and the quiet power of learning. No one could have imagined that the same hands that once wrote arithmetic on chalkboards would one day wield a bolo knife against invaders. When Japan's forces swept across the Philippines in 1942, everything changed. Soldiers marched through Leyte's villages, seizing rice, taking young men for labor, and dragging women into the shadows. Nieves saw her people stripped of dignity, her school turned into a barracks, her students scattered or dead. Something in her broke that day. Not her hope, but her tolerance. She gathered the men of her town, farmers, fishermen, tricycle drivers, and spoke not like a soldier, but like a teacher. If we do not stand, she told them, then our children will never learn what freedom feels like. Out of that meeting, in a small nipa hut deep in the trees, the Fernández guerrilla unit was born. They had no rifles, no uniforms, and no formal training. But Nieves had lessons, simple, sharp, unforgettable. She drew battle plans in the soil, assigning each man homework. Learn the path of the river, memorize the sound of every bird, and move like the wind that touches the grass but leaves no trace. Her weapon of choice was not a gun. It was the bolo, a traditional Filipino blade curved and heavy at the tip, meant for clearing vegetation, but capable of cutting through an enemy line. Nieves strapped it at her waist like a second heartbeat. She taught her men how to strike upward from under the ribs. Fast, silent, final. The technique would later stun American soldiers who watched her demonstrate it after liberation. Under her command, the jungle became a classroom of war. By night, they moved through the trees barefoot, blades wrapped in cloth to silence the clatter. She preferred ambushes, never direct fights. Her men would lie in the dark for hours, hidden in mud, waiting for the glow of a Japanese lantern. When the signal came, a bird call, a whisper, or a tap on bamboo, they struck and vanished. Nieves rarely used guns herself. She trusted the blade, the terrain, and timing. She invented traps from scrap metal, poisoned arrows from the sap of forest plants, and bombs built from dud artillery shells. American forces later examined her handmade weapons, astonished by their ingenuity. Each successful raid spread her legend further. To the villagers, she was a guardian. To the Japanese, she became a phantom, the woman with the bolo. Soon her name carried both reverence and fear. Reports spoke of over 200 Japanese soldiers falling to her hand or her command. A 10,000 peso bounty, a fortune at the time, was placed on her head. Still, she could not be caught. She disguised herself as a peasant when spies entered the hills, slipping past patrols with a basket of vegetables, the bolo hidden beneath. Her deep understanding of Leyte's terrain, its rivers, caves, and forgotten trails, made her invisible in plain sight. Her unit's operations disrupted supply lines, ambushed convoys, and rescued civilians marked for execution. At night, villagers heard distant gunfire and knew Ma'am Nieves was at work again. Her courage spread like rumor, giving hope to those who thought the island had been forgotten. One story tells of a Japanese officer captured alive during an ambush. When asked by an American translator later if he feared the guerrillas, the man replied only one word: Fernández. As months turned into years, Leyte bled, but did not surrender. Nieves' small force, scarcely 100 men, held ground that entire regiments could not. Her leadership came not from rank, but from respect. She shared the same food, endured the same rain, and carried the same fear, but never showed it. When morale faltered, she would speak softly. If I can fight with these small hands, you can fight with yours. By late 1944, American forces returned to the Philippines. When they reached Tacloban, they found a town already alive with resistance. Guerrilla flags flew beside U.S. banners. Among the first to greet them was Nieves Fernández. Bolo on her hip, calm and steady. Reporters who interviewed her were astonished. Here was a woman barely 5 feet tall, smiling gently as she explained how she had taught men to kill in silence. One photograph from that moment became iconic. Nieves holding her bolo, while an American soldier points to a mark on a wooden post, the height at which she demonstrated a fatal strike. According to wartime records, her guerrilla unit had eliminated hundreds of Japanese troops in and around Tacloban. Her personal count exceeded 200 confirmed kills. Yet when asked how she survived so long, she did not boast. She simply said, "We knew our land better than they did." When the war ended, she returned to her teaching. She reopened her school, swept the floors, and taught the children of those who had died fighting beside her. She never sought medals or money, only peace. To the new generation, she was again Ma'am Nieves. But behind her gentle smile lay the memory of nights filled with smoke and fear. In her later years, she spoke little about the war, but those who knew her said she kept the bolo, still sharp, still polished, hanging near her desk. Some say she used it to cut fruit for her students. Others believe she kept it as a reminder that education and defense are born of the same courage. The courage to act when others stay silent. Even today, the story of Nieves Fernández stands out in military history. A school teacher who became a guerrilla commander, a woman who turned knowledge into strategy, compassion into strength, and a classroom into a battlefield. In a war defined by brutality, she fought with precision, honor, and a fierce love for her people. The Japanese called her the woman with the bolo. The Americans called her a hero. But to Leyte, she remains something greater. Proof that even in the darkest invasion, a single teacher with a blade and a lesson can change the course of history.